everyone, my name is Elsa. Welcome back to my channel. Today I want to do the second part of my April wrap-up. So if you've seen the first part, you know I was a bit mean and bitter because basically I had the weirdest month ever. Like the first half of the month, almost all the books I read were books I really didn't like. And then the second part, I became obsessed with so many new books. I'm going to start with the books that were in the middle, you know, the few middle section, like the books I liked but wasn't crazy about. So first we have The Future Is Yours. So The Future Is Yours is an adult sci-fi that just came out, I think. And the story is basically we follow two main characters that have been friends for many years that create a computer that can access the internet in the future, when you're in the future. I talked about it more in my vlog if you're interested, because it was recommended to me for my TBR subscription. And it was objectively really good, it just wasn't for me. Like, it's really a question of personal taste. The character work was incredibly good. The relationships between the two main characters especially, and with other characters, were so incredibly well thought of and developed. The format, it's an original format. It's a mix of different type of written things I don't know, like emails, interviews, paper, articles, the same as in the Illuminati files. You always have the risk with that kind of book to lose the plots or the characters along the way, and you didn't. Like, it was perfect. Perfect for the story, perfect for the character, perfect in every way. The plot in itself was objectively really good. The problem was I wasn't interested in it personally. It's really mostly about how two characters create a company, you know, in the Silicon Valley, and make it work, and how creating a company together can affect a relationship. If you're interested in how Google, Facebook or Apple became the companies they became, you would love this book. The next one is To Be Taught If Fortunate. This one was actually on my 5 stars prediction list, so I thought it would be a 5 stars and it wasn't. But this one too, it's really a question of personal taste. Like, I totally get why people love it. Like, everything is perfect. It's just that I wasn't interested in it as much as I would have liked. Let me explain. We follow 4 astronauts who have one mission. It's to go visit 4 planets, each one for 4 years, and basically do research there about the life, about you know, the weather, about everything. It's very slow. It doesn't really have a plot. It's really about the setting, the research. There's a lot of reflection on what it means to be an astronaut and what it is like to travel in space, the importance of research, the importance of science, the importance of space conquest, etc. The character work was good. I wasn't in love with any of the characters, but the work was done, and there's great representation in this book. I don't really like atmospheric books, and more than that, I don't care about astronauts. I don't care about research, I don't care about spatial conquest, and so everything they talked about, I wasn't, you know, feeling the vibe. But really, it's a me problem, an absolute me problem. The book in itself is really, really good. It's really short, and I highly, highly recommend it if you love astronauts. The next one is a graphic novel, and it's Check Please. It's about this young boy, BT, who goes to college, and he loves baking, and he joins the hockey team. And it's basically his day-to-day life in college with his baking and his friends and his hockey team. I loved the main character. Like, he was a cinnamon roll. I loved him so much. I wanted to hug him all the time. He's so cute, he's so adorable. The other important characters in this book, I had a hard time with them at first because they are not really likable, and then they grew on me, and by the end I was completely sold on the fan family. Like, the fan family was really great. They all live in a dorm together, they are all on the hockey team, and you love their relationships and the way they are together. It's so good. The only thing that made me rate it for 4 stars is the romance, because I was expecting something like Heartstopper, which is one of my favorite graphic novels, and I didn't, because basically there is a romance, but it's really low, and I didn't. The only character in the entire book I wasn't crazy about was the love interest. Like, you don't see much of him, and I didn't connect with him. I don't think it's a bad character or bad written character. I just didn't see him enough to care about him and to care about his relationship, because basically you only have a few scenes here and there, and So I wasn't sold on the romance. Then we have My Sister's Serial Killers. I talked about it in my vlog and it was really good. The story is about this girl who has a sister and her sister keeps killing her boyfriends. And the main character has to help her cover for it. And the first times she was like, you know, the sister said it was because her boyfriends assaulted her and so she was just defending herself. And her sister believed her and she helped her cover for it. And then it happened again and happened again, and at the start of the book the main character is really like, she doesn't trust her sister anymore and she doesn't think that things happen the way her sister said it happened. The main character, she was my baby. Like, she was so complex and developed and relatable, like so relatable. One of the most relatable characters I ever read about. I loved her so much and I was rooting for her with all my heart. I just wanted her to be happy and I wanted all the best for her. The plot was, it's supposed to be a thriller, it's not, let's be clear, because it has a thriller vibes, but it's more of a contemporary in the sense that if you expect a lot of action, you won't get it. Like, it's not an action-packed book, but the tension is so there and you love the character so much and the chapters are so short, I couldn't put it down. It was so good and I was completely hooked by the story. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars was the ending. I didn't like it. And to me, it's made the rest of the book seem less. And that's why I gave it 4 stars, but still, the ride till the ending was incredible. And now we have finally reached the section when I talk about my new favorites. Like, I fell in love with all of them. They are, until now, I don't know if you noticed, but it was from the book I liked the least to the book I liked the most. From now on, they are all on this level. I can't put them in an appreciation order or something. It's not just possible because I love them all so much. So let's start with Attack on Titan. So I just read the last 3 volumes in the series and I finished it. So some people loved the ending, some people hated it. I personally really liked it. So you can have your opinion on that, but either way, it doesn't change the fact that Attack on Titan is one of the best manga series ever written. Like, it's incredible. And I would have never thought that. You would have told me that it would be one of my favorite mangas like 3 years ago. I wouldn't have believed you. And I was so stupid back then. So let me explain why you should absolutely read it or watch it, because I usually prefer mangas. I watch the anime adaptations sometimes, but I think the book's always better than the adaptation. Except in this case, Attack on Titan, the manga series is incredible, but the anime adaptation is like, wow, like just wow. So please watch it if you can. It's on Netflix, I think. And so about the story at the beginning. It's a seinen manga, I should say. So I talked about the different type of mangas, so I will it will appear here if you want to check it out. But basically, seinen mangas are mangas for new adults or adults, and this one is really violent, so be careful with that. Although it doesn't have anything like rape or sexual assault or something like that. It's just bloody violence, but it's totally okay. Like, if you can watch God, you can watch you can read that. And so the story basically it takes place in a world we know nothing much about at the beginning. We just have these people living inside 3 gigantic walls, and they have lived there all their life and they can't go out of the walls because outside there are titans. So titans are incredibly big creatures that look like humans but have no brain and eat humans, and so they're extremely dangerous and very hard to kill. And so they just live inside the walls to not be eaten by titans. And one day something happens and basically everything changes, and then so how can I say that? If you think it's going to be a dumb thing with people fighting these monsters, these titans that look like humans, there are fights in this series, but this is by far one of the smartest books I ever read. Like, everything's perfect. The character work, all the characters are incredibly good. Like, they are so developed, so complex, so incredibly good. There's a fan family trope that is amazing. The group you love you love them all so much. So there's that. And there are a lot of female characters in this group, and they are all so great characters, like so good. Plot. It's one of the most incredible plots I ever read. Like, you can't know because I just told you nothing basically about the plot, but like, it's so unpredictable and it's so smart, and the entire time you're at the edge of your seat because you have so many questions. Like, this book is so mysterious. It's like, basically the characters have to know things and they have so many questions about so many things, and they have to work their ass off to get the answers, and you want them to get the answers so bad, and every time you get an answer you get 1,000 more questions, and it's so good. The fights are incredible, like the training and the it's so good. Like, everything is so perfect. There's also politics involved, like the politics, the fights, everything is perfect. Like, please trust me on this one and watch it. Just watch it. Okay, the next one is Promised Neverland. So same, it's one of my favorite mangas ever, and I read volumes 17 and 18, so I have only 2 left, and I will read them in May. So I will finish the series soon, and it's so incredibly good as well. Like, same, it's a seinen manga. You can be fooled because they are, you know, the main characters are children, but it's seinen, so it's for adults. And same, there's violence. Not as much as in Attack on Titan, but still there's violence. And so basically the story, it's about these children that are orphans and live in an orphanage, and you can see that the orphanage is a bit weird because they are always tested. The children are always tested, and they are super smart. Like, they are trained to be extremely smart. And one day the main characters discover that the world isn't what they thought it was. The characters in this book are incredible. Like, they are so incredibly well developed and so complex and so lovable. The plot is incredible, like, unpredictable and so good and so brilliant and smart, because you have smart characters, so you have a smart plot, and it's so good. Like, I love smart characters who make smart choices and have, you know, plans and tactics, and you know, never know what they're going to do next, and it's so incredibly good. It's like a thriller, and you're completely hooked from chapter 1. So next one is Orion Lost. Oh my god, Orion Lost. I follow the channel of Brightness Katie Reads, and she recently did a video about her favorites middle grades, and this was one of them, and I totally agree. It became one of my favorite middle grades ever. It's a sci-fi middle grade, and basically we follow Beth, who boards a spaceship with her family and 1,000 other people, and they're all supposed to travel through space for 9 months until they reach Eos 5, which is a planet that they are supposed to colonize. And so the planet is ready for them, it's waiting for them, and they're just supposed to go there and start living there. And at one point something happens, and basically everyone ends up in a coma except 6 children, and Beth is one of them, and Beth is named the captain. And so basically she has, with these 5 other children, to just take this ship and make it so it reaches Eos 5 so they can save everyone else on board. And because of what happened, the spaceship is an absolute mess and they're completely lost in space. So first, character work is great. Not the best I ever seen, but really great. And I especially loved the character arc of Beth, because Beth is the captain. And basically one of the other characters thinks he should have been captain, and he's not, and he's under her orders, and he doesn't like that. And so there are so many conflicts, so many tension within this group. And basically Beth's character arc is her growing from being a bit timid and not wanting to assert herself and becoming a captain. The plot is one of the most incredible I have ever seen in a middle grade. Like, I was completely hooked. I couldn't put this book down. Things after things after things happened, and I was like, ah! And the sci-fi aspect was so good because there are aliens and there are, pirate spaceships, and there is an intelligent IA on the ship that they are talking to. I loved everything about this world building and the world and everything that happened. So next one is Piranesi. Piranesi. I actually bought it the minute I finished it, and it's here because, oh, watch it, it's so beautiful. I love it so much because it's my new baby. And basically you're following Piranesi, who lives in a labyrinth, and he knows nothing much about the labyrinth. Everything is very mysterious, even for him, and things happen and he starts to think about things and wonder about things and why things are the way they are, and tries to get answers to all his questions. And that's the book, and it was a reading experience. Like, this book did something to me. So first, the character work. Piranesi is one of the best characters I ever read about. I'm completely in love with him. He's a mix between Laszlo from Strange the Dreamer and Spock from Star Trek. And if you're not convinced by that, I don't know what will. As Laszlo, he's super generous and kind and very optimistic and a bit naive, and he's always seeing the bright side of things. But as Spock, he doesn't really express his emotions and he's a bit introverted, and more than that, he has a scientific mind. And I loved him so much. Then there's the format. It's diaries entry. It's really hard to explain, but the diary entries are so good and just perfect for conveying the story. And then you have the plot. It's not action-packed at all, in the sense that not many things happen, but I couldn't put it down. It reminded me a lot of the show VOA. Like the fantasy aspect and the atmosphere, it's very similar, like the feeling you get, and the questions, only it's more peaceful. Like you're stressed watching VOA, you're not stressed reading Piranesi. You're just very intrigued. And now we're going to the atmosphere. I don't really care about atmospheres in book usually, but in this book, the atmosphere was everything to me. Like, it felt like a sanctuary. It's hard to explain, but I was so at peace reading this book because the labyrinth, it's my comfort place now. So yeah, completely in love. Next one is My Lady Jane. I would have never thought I would love it this much. So the problem was this cover. Who had the idea of having this cover for this book? I don't think it's awful in itself. I just think it does a terrible job at telling you what this book is about and the tone of the book. This is the retelling of the story of Jane Grey, who was Queen of England for 9 days in 1554 and then was beheaded. This is a retelling of the story, but with fantasy elements and a romance, and it's hilarious. And I would have never guessed that watching this cover. So basically in this world, because it's not totally our world, you have Ephians. Ephians are people that can transform in an animal. So you can be a horse, a dog, or anything. Basically, Jane Grey, for the sake of the kingdom, has to marry an Ephian who's a horse, and he can't control it, so he's a horse from dawn to sunset. And it's so incredibly good. Like, the character work was great. Like, I loved the 4 main characters so much. They were everything to me. Then we have the romance. There are 2 main love stories in this book, and the 2 of them were incredibly beautiful, and I'm super picky with romances. So cute and adorable and really romantic, and best couples ever. Then we have the plot. The plot isn't the main thing in this book, but it's super interesting and just perfect. And then we have the humor. Like, the humor. This book was so funny. Like, I was laughing out loud the entire time. And if I wasn't laughing, I was smiling, like, with all my teeth. Like, I was reading like that. Please read it. Then we have The Assassin's Apprentice. I read this one as a buddy read with one of my best friends, and this was such a reading experience. This one I didn't think I would love this much. Basically, you follow the story of Fitz, who's the bastard son of a former heir to the crown. And Fitz is trained as an assassin to protect the royal family. I had a hard start with it because I wasn't into it until the 5th chapter. In chapter 5, I got really interested. I was like, this is getting interested. And then it went from here to here. By the end of the first half of the book, I was completely hooked. I couldn't put it down, and I knew it was going to be a favorite. The character work was incredible. All the characters were so developed and complex. And the main character, like, I didn't care for him much at the beginning because he's only 6, and so he doesn't have much of a personality. But as he grows up, I grew to love him with all my heart. Like, he's my baby. I could follow him to the end of the world, and I can't wait to read what happens to him next. The plot was... and it's so unpredictable. Like, you have no idea what you're getting into reading this book. And there are so many twists and turns. I was slapped in the face at least 5 times reading this book. Like, my jaw dropped and I was like, oh, what? All the time. Like, this book, incredible. So good. Highly recommend it. And then we have Artificial Condition. So this is the second book in the Murderbot Diaries. And I really liked the first one. I gave it 4 stars. And this one I loved even more. I gave it 5 stars, and this one actually made me love the first one even more. Like, I upgraded my rating to 5 stars because of this one. Let me explain. There are only 2 little things that bothered me in the first volume, and they were completely fixed in this one. So I had no reason to be, you know, annoyed anymore, and so I was like, ah, so happy. It's about this sec unit. So basically he's a robot but with organic parts, and he's been created to basically kill people or protect people. And so he's lent to companies who want to use him, usually as a bodyguard. He's supposed to be a killing machine with no emotions, but he's not. And basically all he wants to do is live in peace and watch TV shows. One of the things I love the most about this series is the main character is so complex. He hates showing his feelings and he hates connecting with people, but sometimes he doesn't have a choice, and oh, it's so good. Like, I love the relationships in this book. I'm in love with the main character. The plot is super interesting as well. You have you know, a mini plot in every novella, and in the first one it was so good, and the second one it was even better. Like, I love the plots in these books, and I can't wait to read the next one. Finally, we have The Well of Ascension. So this is the second book in the Wisborn series. It's my first time reading it, and I loved it so much. Dan Sanderson is becoming one of my favorite authors. Everything he does is just perfect. Like, character work is perfect, relationship is perfect, plot is perfect. Like, his plots are so incredibly complex and interesting and just fascinating with so many twists and turns, and so perfect. I love his plots. And I love his world building. His world building is incredible. Like, his magic system is everything. If you haven't read it, the first one takes place in this fantasy world that has been ruled for 1,000 years by this evil guy who won 1,000 years ago. In the story, we follow a group of thieves who received the mission to do a heist to overthrow the main villain. So it's a heist and it's a rebellion at the same time, and it's so incredibly good. So I love the first one, I love the second one, I loved everything about the second book, but if I had to pick two things I love the most, it would be, it's a slight spoiler, just telling you who survived in the first book. So it's not a huge spoiler, but if you don't want to know who lived at the end of the first book, so yeah, you must, you know, skip ahead. And so yeah, the two things I loved the most in this book was first the character arc of Elend. Like, his character arc was so good, I loved it. And the second one was the relationship between Vin and Orsa. Like, oh, it was so good, I loved it. I was living for it. I'm so happy I discovered these books. I completely fell in love with them, and yeah, I just can't wait to read the sequels to most of the books I just talked about next month. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please tell me in the comments if you read any of the books I talked about and what you thought about them. Thank you for watching, and see you around, guys.